Hello and welcome to episode number 17 of Hawk Talk as we continue to introduce you to the personalities and coaches that make up the Monmouth University Athletics Department. Good evening, everyone. I'm Eddie Occupanti and happy to have you along once again. My guest this evening is the head women's basketball coach at Monmouth University. And please help me greet for the first time here this evening, Coach Jody Craig. Coach, how are you tonight?
I'm well, thanks, Eddie. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. And before we have any conversation about anything involving the program and the university, the first thing that I always like to check in on, Coach, how are you? How are your family doing during this time?
We are doing very well. We are fortunate that we didn't have any health concerns with any of my close family. Everybody is sheltering in place and slowly reopening. Dave and I were able to make it from California back to New Jersey just within the last few days. So there's an anticipation that hopefully things will be opening up again on campus and getting started for basketball and all that good stuff. But we are very good at this moment and happy that everything's worked out as well as it has.
Well, happy to hear that, Coach. And before we dive into any conversation, I have to ask right away, how was traveling during this time?
Yeah, it was a little nerve-wracking. We got a ticket March 16th, right after everything shut down, and we just said we are going to kind of do our best to make it over to California, to our home there, and we were nervous when we did it, but we didn't have any health concerns. We were fine when we got there. We didn't have any symptoms or anything, and the plane was fairly full at that time. So it hadn't really hit yet, I don't think. And then coming back was very different. And fortunately, we were on a United flight that they did keep the middle seats open. So there was some social distancing on the flight. And the protocols were very different coming back. But I'd never seen a more clean airplane. So that was encouraging. And we felt very safe. And once again, we've been here for a few days now, and so far, so good.
And if some of the silver lining in this whole thing is, like you said, you were on the cleanest airplane you've been on. And I think everyone is all in for never having a middle seat on a plane ever again. So if that's one of the things that comes from it, good with me.
I agree.
If you have a question for head women's basketball coach Jody Craig, and if you would like to get involved here on our Hawk Talk this evening, please submit it into our Facebook live chat, and I'll make sure to get that question right over to Coach. Coach and I were just talking before we came on air, the unique situation that is the situation we find ourselves in and basketball, and that being that the last sport any of us saw at Monmouth involving a Monmouth team in the state of New Jersey was with this women's basketball program. So, Coach, I'm going to ask you to go all the way back to March, as you said, before you ventured out to California, and just take us down to Atlantic City and to those moments leading up to and then right after the news that you and your staff had received as far as everyone being sent home off campus.
Sure. Yeah, we had played one of our best basketball games to advance over Iona and to get the chance to play Marist again. And I believe that was on March 10th. We had just completed that game, and unfortunately they beat us. They're a very good team, but we had just completed our season. And I remember going to the post-game interview, and one of the questions was, what did I think about them canceling all the other NCAA tournaments? And I remember being shocked for a moment, but at the same time, just realizing the gravity of what was happening, that this really was a worldwide pandemic, and where does sports fit into that relatively? I mean, it's about everybody's health and safety at that point. So I just said, whatever they think is best for us is what we're going to have to do at this point. And as much as I really felt for all the teams that never got to complete their season, I think that's just devastating. I think we all realized that this was something that nobody could control or foresee, and we just had to follow what we needed to do at that time.
In basketball, found itself in the unique position of being at its most important time of the year. It was conference tournament time. We were down at Boardwalk Hall for the first time with the MAC tournament. And the men's team didn't even get to play one postseason game. Like you said, your team played one of its most complete games of the season in that win over Iona. And then, Coach, in the immediate aftermath of that, and as you start to, unpack and digest the season, now you have to do that while checking on the well-being of a bunch of student athletes and your staff, and then start to figure everything out. So if you could kind of, again, kind of take us back through those first couple of days after everyone going home, what were those like, trying to look after your program, your team, the well-being of your student athletes?
Yeah, well, we were going to return home to a campus that had already been vacated, and that was weird. All the kids really didn't know what to expect, and they still had to go to their dorm and get packed up and cleared out. And we were making arrangements for who was going to go home where. We did have some players from California. We had 2 players from California, so they were making flight arrangements, and they were kind of asking me, is it okay? I said, absolutely. Like, you just need to get away home now as quickly as you can. And then we had a couple international students, and both of them chose to stay, which I give them so much credit. That's got to be so tough to not be able to go home to your family at this time. But they wanted to be here and have no concerns for coming back in the summer if the situation presented itself that we could be here in the summer. So they're still here in the area in various different homes. And so I give them a lot of credit for that. And I'm thankful that everybody made it home healthy and safe, and we didn't have any issues with things like the health side of anything.
The questions are starting to come in for Coach Craig, so I'll interrupt this part of our conversation to get to our first question. That comes in, and it comes in from Dennis, who is in Eatontown. And Coach Craig, Dennis in Eatontown wants to know, with the loss of 6 seniors to graduation, who are you looking to step up next season for the returning players and maybe some of the new players coming in?
Well, I think some of the players that we had hoped were going to make a huge impact even for us last year, who ended up being injured, are those that we're going to turn to again. And I think in particular, Lucy, I think Breanna, and Jen Laurel are the 3 that I would anticipate who didn't really get a complete season, in the fact that none of them were at full strength and none of them were fully healthy. So what you saw, and Breanna didn't even get a season at all. She had a season-ending injury against Providence, so she didn't even really get to play. Lucy was injured for the most of the season, and Jen really had not recovered from her ACL injury. So those being players that have been in our program now and more upperclassmen, I definitely anticipate and expect them to want to come back with a lot of excitement and energy to make up for what was maybe a disappointing year for them. I also expect just Allure and Alexa to be the defensive phenoms that they are learning to be and add some offense to their game. I think they're going to as well give us a big lift. And then, of course, our incoming class is very enticing and very intriguing. I think more than ever, we have had more excitement about who we have had the chance to recruit, and the quality of student athlete that we're bringing into this program is probably unmatched in any of our other recruiting classes at this point.
And over the course of our conversation here tonight with Jody Craig, we're going to get into detail about a little bit of all of that. But if you do have a question, again, please submit it in. I'll make sure to insert it into our conversation, as Coach gave you just a little glimpse there as in terms of some of the returning players that will be coming back. But Coach, we were going over again that timeline that set us up to where we are now. And now as we spring forward, because of everyone being home, everyone being remote, how are you and your staff keeping in touch with the players? How is that going? I'm sure you've all become Zoom experts like all of us. So how is it going, keeping tabs on everyone?
It's been actually an amazing time, and one that I've learned would be something that I would want to be able to do, or something similar to it. We have just spent a lot more time getting to know each other off the floor, not so much about what our basketball skill set is all about, but learning about, we've been focusing on the mental aspects of being an athlete and essentially what it takes to be a winner, what it takes to be a great competitor, and the qualities that go into being a champion. And one of the things that I noticed about our team and the number of games that we lost was such a close margin last year that we had to focus on our mindset. Our mindset was something that was holding us back. And you don't need a basketball court to work on that, but we needed time and we needed focus where we weren't distracted by the other things that you probably want to do if you could be on the floor. You'd much more likely want to go out and shoot the ball and work on your ball handling skills and various things. And this stuff is not stuff that you always necessarily get into, but there was literally nothing else we could do. And so we took advantage of that. And I am so excited by the steps that I've seen our players take, the learning process, the growth that I've seen over the last 2-3 months. And we've been talking about these things and they've been sharing and we've been growing closer as a team. I can honestly say that we are starting from a stronger foundation than I can ever say we've started with prior to any of our other seasons so far.
It's a very interesting point you bring up, Coach. And, so much of what we, as those who aren't as intimately involved with the program as a coaching staff, we all just sit back and see the sports side of things. And we get to see what happens on the court and on the field. But using this time, like you just said, to focus on the mental side of it, it really is an interesting point. And one, you said that, and it kind of even made me go like this, like, wow, we should all be doing that. How has the team, in your opinion, grown, come together, even though ironically they're apart?
Yeah, so we've become more aware of where our weaknesses were. We've addressed certain areas that we realized we needed to get better with. In particular, our confidence level needed to improve. Our ability to be resilient needed to improve. Our ability to manage failure and how to put it into a perspective of growing and learning from our mistakes and not having it mean something about ourselves. So it's basic stuff, but if your mindset as an athlete isn't where you want it to be, your physical skills aren't going to follow. And it doesn't matter how great you are, you have to have a confidence behind you and a belief in yourself in order to really maximize the talents and the skills that you have. So we've been working on that, and we've been getting to know each other in a way of wanting to become accountable for each other in this growth process, not just for ourselves, but helping each other become better at these skills and supporting one another along the way.
If you have a question for Monmouth head women's basketball coach Jody Craig, please submit it into our Facebook live chat, and I'll make sure to get that question right over to Coach, just like this next one that's coming in now. And Joe Compagni checking in. Coach Joe has a question. Coach, it's interesting. When this whole thing started, it was the NBA and professional basketball that kind of led the way as far as sending everyone home. So Coach Joe's question is on the professional side, but he wants to know your thoughts on the WNBA plan to have everyone together in the bubble at Bradenton at IMG Academy. What do you think of their plan?
Well, I think they're following the NBA plan. That's also the bubble concept. And I really hope it works because I think we all need an opportunity to get back out on the floor and also provide entertainment for those that aren't playing. I think everybody could benefit from that right now. And I believe it's possible if everybody really does stay quarantined the way that they're supposed to. If the bubble concept really is a bubble and they don't go in and out and they make that sacrifice for their sport so they can play, I think it can work. I mean, we're all wondering and learning from watching what others try and do and hoping that it's going to work because we all want to get back to playing.
Well, I could not echo that sentiment louder than Coach just said. The thing that we all, as people in this profession, want and need is some live sports. And me putting up jumpers outside isn't cutting it anymore. It's time to watch everyone else do it. Our next question comes in from a place I love, a place I lived for a long time. Rob is in Tinton Falls, and Rob, Coach, has a question about Your team last year was in so many defensive battles, led the MAC in scoring defense. Defense clearly is an emphasis for you and the coaching staff. His question, how much of defense is indeed an emphasis?
So it is, absolutely. And yet it's the mentality that we're trying to teach, that the defensive side of the basketball can show that first. And what that mentality is a grittiness, it's a resilience, it's a relentless effort, it's being on the same page, it's moving as one. One of the things that we had a problem with was our offensive consistency. So we had to be great defensively in order to give ourselves a chance to be in some basketball games. And we did that, and we were stifling. And it's something that we will continue because we're very good at it. We have players that love defense, that they might say they love defense more than they love offense, a few of them. And that's probably rare, but it's also great balance, because then we're going to have some players coming in this year that probably are the other way. So I think our team is going to come together this year with strengths on both sides of the basketball, but hopefully the same mentality. What I just said, that relentless effort, that being on the same page, playing as one, a tenacity, a grittiness, a toughness, a steadiness, where you can be calm in adverse moments is what we're working towards. And when you play great defense, you can keep yourself in a lot of games and get through a lot of adversity when things aren't going your way. We just didn't quite have enough on the scoring side last year to get it done. We actually did a little analysis, and if we had just been able to score 58 points consistently, we would have won 17 games last year. Now, that sounds crazy that we couldn't score 58, but that's the truth of the situation. But we're so close because it didn't take a whole lot more to get to 58, and I really believe this year we're going to do that.
Yeah, I think the point you bring up, Coach, is so interesting. It doesn't matter what the sport is. Everyone says football is a game of inches. Basketball, you could say it's a game of 1 or 2 points per game. But what you speak to is that culture building that you've already said a lot of words a couple of times, which means it's important to you as a head coach. It's hard to be in close games. It's hard to get to that point. So now, do you feel like the team, like you said, if they continue that building and that upward trajectory, those close games they were in last year, now they start turning into close wins?
Yeah, I think it's really, again, our mindset, how we view a challenge. How do we view, quote unquote, pressure? Is there pressure? And how do we put it into perspective? So those types of things, because if we can stay free and we cannot get ourselves in the past or the present, we can actually just stay in the moment and play the possession for what it is and not be so hung up on whether we failed the last time in that situation or worried about how it's going to go, we're going to be in a lot better position to have some success the next time we find ourselves in that same situation. And we found ourselves in so many learning opportunities last year. I honestly don't think we could have created a better learning environment if the point was to just learn, because we learned a whole lot. But the point was to win, and unfortunately that was frustrating because we were so close so many times and couldn't get over the hump. But it really had me start to look at why that was. And it told me that we needed to make some changes in terms of how we viewed certain circumstances and situations.
If you have a question for Jody Craig, again, please submit it into our Facebook live chat, and the questions are rolling in. I've been a little chatty, so I need to get over to the questions now. And the next question comes in, Coach, a familiar name, John Wooding, who is a veteran of college athletics. He's worked in and around the MAC for quite a while, and we know him. He's courtside at our games. John Wooding has a question for you, Coach. And as a veteran yourself of over 20 years of coaching in college, what part of the game do you enjoy more, practice or in-game coaching and maybe recruiting? One of those three, you got to pick.
I would not choose recruiting out of the three. I think I've gone back and forth between practice and games. I love the development of players and seeing players grow over the course of a year, of a season. But I do really enjoy seeing if we can tactically make some different strategic decisions in a game that might change the outcome. And I think I got more comfortable with doing that over the course of my 20 years. I certainly probably was terrible at it at first. And I think I still make a lot of mistakes, but I don't shy away from those moments anymore. And I have the opportunity to see what difference we can make with a coaching strategic move. And of course, that's not going to be the ultimate deciding factor. Ultimately, your kids have to have the skills and the fundamentals to execute the plays and understand what our focus is. Without that, no strategic move is going to make a difference. But it can if all things are equal, and then you can actually insert yourself into the equation as a coach and see if there's something we can do to change the outcome.
The questions continue to come in for Coach Jody Craig. And our next one, all right, Coach, now I'm going to put you in a mindset here, okay?
Okay.
Imagine that you just finished coaching a game and it was a close win. And you know the emotion and the activity that goes into coaching a game. So with that in mind, Lynn from Jackson, a regular contributor on our Hawk Talk series, wants to know, what is your go-to post-game meal order?
Ooh, go-to post-game. Probably pizza. Yeah, and I've been working on finding great pizza places out here. But James Young, my assistant, swears that the bread and the dough is different in New Jersey. So I keep trying to find that and believing that he knows what he's talking about when it comes to restaurants.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and side with James. As a fellow Jersey Shore guy, we are very particular and very defensive about our pizza. So I agree with Coach.
And
the bagels. Yes. It makes it very difficult to stay trim and fit, but, one problem at a time.
There you go.
The next question comes in, and we get back to basketball with Monmouth head women's coach Jody Craig. And Jeremy, who's in West Long Branch, wants to know, all right, Coach, with 2 full seasons under your belt now, if you could now kind of lay out in your mind, what do you feel is the plan to take this Monmouth program to a championship level?
Yeah, I mean, the plan is that we've got to get back to the basics, the fundamentals, and be willing to work daily at improving. I think there was not enough emphasis on the desire to grow every day, the desire to learn and master your craft every day, to get in the gym, to improve on skills, to have a better understanding. So just that emphasis on growing and learning and have that be a consistent focus is important. I think taking ownership and being responsible for ourselves and really accepting that I own everything that I do, for the positive and the negative. So a little bit more accountability in what's happening with what we're doing. But more than anything, the mindset of embracing challenges so that we take a certain attitude on the floor, a winning attitude, a championship attitude, one that we're playing to win and not afraid to lose and trying to find ways to avoid that, but that we have a strong belief in ourselves. So what does that mean? Well, we better really get in the gym and work on our fundamentals so that we do have that confidence behind us. And then it's a matter of having multiple scorers be effective. That is something that we did not have a year ago. You could have figured out exactly where we were going to have to get our scoring from. And the problem was everybody else knew that as well. But this year, the fact that our incoming class is so much more diverse, so much more capable, combined with now some of our returners having a couple years under their belt of experience in this league and what it takes to be great, it's all going to come together. I have no doubt that this is the year that, because we've been able to lay a little bit of foundation and because we just have a different mentality moving forward, I think our players are much more bought in to what we believe in as a coaching staff. And I can't wait to get on the floor and see that mindset play out in how we practice, how we take the floor in challenges. I think it's just going to be very different.
Coach, you're using words like mentality and approach, and I can't help but kind of interject into the questions that are still coming in now and just ask, is that part, in your opinion, of this program's identity and this program's culture, in your opinion, moving forward?
Absolutely. I mean, there's not one coach that you've had on your Hawk Talk that didn't talk about their culture or didn't talk about a winning mentality. And you have to have the mentality before you're going to have the results. They don't come other way around. You have to build it from the inside. And then through that process, you're going to start to see results. But you have to commit to the process and the belief that the character is driving that and the belief that we've got to work on that character. When we show some consistency there, results will follow. And I have no doubt results are following this year. We've scheduled a really tough schedule. So, we may have more results than necessarily show up on the scoreboard, but we're going to see them in terms of how we're playing and the way we're approaching the game.
We go back to the questions for Jody Craig, and the next question comes in. Karen is in Belmar, and Karen wants to know, Coach, what is your favorite part about the Jersey Shore?
The beach.
It's a perfect answer.
I love the beach. I am a beach bum. If I could be, I would be there a lot. And so I happen to now, I am blessed to live right on the beach, that I get a chance to see the sunrise every morning. And I literally pinch myself that is happening, because I would not have ever anticipated that I would be in a position to have that opportunity to live right there and see that on the daily. So I just absolutely love being right on the ocean and having the beach right out our doorstep. And I love the summer. I don't know that I'm a great fan of the winters here, and I'm not sure I ever will be, but I absolutely love the summer and everything that goes with it.
Quite interesting too, because you mentioned spent some time, a lot of time in California. So you've seen the sun set plenty of times, but now that sunrise over the ocean, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think I would take the sunrise. I would take the sunrise.
The next question comes in, and if you were listening earlier, you heard Coach talk about the team's experience down at the MAC tournament in Atlantic City. But if you missed it, you can obviously catch it on rebroadcast. It's available on MonmouthHawks.com. You can also check it out in the video tab right here on the Monmouth Athletics Facebook page, as well as on our YouTube channel. So thinking about MAC tournament now, Chris, who's in Absecon, and that's right near Atlantic City, wants to know, Coach, how was the team's first experience with the MAC tournament in Atlantic City?
We absolutely loved it. It was everything that they wanted it to be. I just wish that our men could have played and we could have been a part of that experience as well. And obviously, I wish that we would have been able to be seated a little bit better than we were and been playing for more than we had the chance to. I guess it turned out for the better, because we actually got to play a couple games, and those that were seated in the top four never even really got to play. But just the atmosphere there, they did a great job of promoting it. It was fun to be in Atlantic City in a destination. And I thought the tournament was extremely well promoted. So we're looking forward to next year. I think it's just going to be better, because everyone's got an idea now of what it is, but hopefully it has the opportunity to really grow and really build on itself after the first year.
And I'll even further that point, Coach. I think at that point, we hope everything is back to more than normal than it is now. And at that point, everyone's going to be just ready for some live sports. So live sports, Atlantic City, I think the buzz is almost going to sell itself at that point.
I would 100% agree.
The questions come in for Jody Craig, and we get back to the questions. The next one comes in. Leslie is in Bradley Beach. And Coach, Leslie's question is about one of the returning players that you referenced earlier. And Lucy Thomas has had a big role with the program in her first 2 years. How important is Lucy's development to the success of this Monmouth program?
Probably the most important. Lucy is just a really integral piece to what our plans are for this upcoming season, and really the style of play fits her perfectly. The fact that she's so versatile, we are going to use her in multiple ways, put her in situations that she can be effective in multiple ways. And I think she was so disappointed in how the season went last year. I expect her to come back with a vengeance. Lucy is a great competitor. I love that she's a local player. I love that Jen Laro's a local player. It brings out the community. And when those two start really clicking and playing at the capacity that I know they're capable of, I think there's going to be great excitement in our area, and we're going to get a lot of fans come out.
And I can only imagine just how frustrating it was specifically for those two. And I know you mentioned some of the other players like Breanna who had injury concerns last year to try to come back, setback, try to come back, setback, and to not be healthy. So the hope really is that they're taking this time to heal themselves, be ready on the court, because we got just small glimpses of them being able to play together, and it was pretty special when they were able to do that.
Don't recall, I mean, we played a league game against Manhattan in December, and Lucy hit the game-winning shot. And then, you know, all those other game-winning scenarios that we had a chance, had the ball, and maybe had a chance to do it again, Lucy wasn't on the floor.
Right.
And, you know, not that it's all got to be about Lucy, but she's a proven go-to in that moment. And those are the kind of players that you got to have to be able to win some of those close games. You just want more than one, so they can't figure out that it's always going to be Lucy.
And the questions continue to come in for Jody Craig. And now the next question comes in from Tim. Tim is watching our Hawk Talk tonight. We appreciate it. And he mentions that, Coach, you mentioned earlier about the incoming freshman class. There's a lot of newcomers joining the program next year. Can you talk about those incoming freshmen and what you think they will bring to this team?
Well, as a unit, they just bring more length. They bring more offensive skill. They bring a winning mindset. There's a couple of them that have won back-to-back state titles in their high schools, and were pushing for a third before things got shut down. And I think then individually, a versatility, just that a lot of offensive capabilities, not just the ability to shoot on the perimeter, but to score in all three ways, so be able to effectively finish inside. You know, they are bigger. The fact that our smallest player that we recruited is 5'8", and it goes 5'9", 5'10", 6'1", 6'2", 6'3" after that. So that's some really good size, and also just talent. Many of them come from just really solid AAU programs that send players all over the country to Power 5 schools, all the way on down. And we were able to get some kids commit to us because of the relationships that we formed and our school, quite honestly, and what Monmouth has to offer here. And we were able to get some kids that others maybe fell off on late due to injuries, or they just love the school and made the decision to come to us. And I think it's the highest level recruiting class that we've seen in a long while.
We're excited to see them in uniform next year, and I'm excited to broadcast the games with them next year. And, you know, Coach, you bring in such a large freshman class because on the way out of the program is almost 3,000 points, over 2,000 rebounds, and a lot of seniors who had a lot accomplished for them and who did a lot for this program. But as we kind of pivot and look forward, you've spoken really glowingly about the recruiting class and about the players in the program. So when you add all that up and we hear the words that you're talking about, what the team has been able to do off the court, a lot of optimism surrounding this Monmouth Hawks women's basketball program moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly can't be more excited. I think this is the most excited I have been to start a season in a very, very, very long time. And it's frustrating that we are where we are with the pandemic, because I just really want to get going. But we'll do what we have to do and we'll adjust. But I can tell you that there is a great amount of optimism moving forward. There's a lot of excitement with our freshmen coming in. They're excited to get started and make their mark. And I think our returners are excited to have new beginnings. I think they're excited to have a fresh start, a new approach, tighter relationships with our coaching staff, and really being just a little closer as a team, probably as a result, well, for sure as a result of this time spent away, where we got to know each other on a different level and had a different focus than just basketball.
Yeah, and I think that's again so interesting to hear. And one of the things doing these Hawk Talks that I've heard is really nuggets from our head coaches with what they're taking away, and to be able to maximize that time off the court for that culture building and mentality building. That means as soon as you can get on the court, hopefully you and this program are ready to hit the ground running.
We're that's our goal. That's what we're looking to do. We're really feeling like we're going to be more efficient in our practices because we now come from the same place that we understand what our goal is in practice. And they didn't understand that my goal was to actually make it really, really hard for them. That was my goal in practice. They didn't really understand. They thought I was just being mean. But now that we get why that is and why we care about consistent growth and challenges, and it's okay to fail. Failure is just a step of learning towards success. And when we're failing, we're actually learning, and we're doing really, really well because we're growing. So just all those different switches in terms of how we view things is going to allow our progress to be much quicker, I believe, once we take the floor.
The questions continue to come in for Jody Craig. The next question comes in. Reese is checking out our Hawk Talk here this evening. And Coach Reese is a regular at Monmouth home games and makes the point that you always see a lot of other Monmouth programs in support of the women's basketball team at home games. How important is it to see their support and then to return the favor to go to their games as well?
Well, it's one of the things that I love about this school is that how much we really do support each other. We encourage our players to go out and see as many games as possible. They naturally go to the men's basketball game, but I know that we've been regulars this year at field hockey and at soccer. And we had one of the most fun experiences we had was cheering on the field hockey team to their what conference are they in? The America East?
The America East, correct. Yep.
Yeah, and their win to clinch that championship. That was so fun to be a part of that because it went into, I think, double overtime. And we hung out there the entire time yelling and screaming, and it was just awesome. So I think it's huge. And I hope that with things that are going on in the world right now and our campus uniting even more than it has in the past, I anticipate turnout for each other even higher than it has been in the past. I think one of the things that this school is so great at is being leaders in areas where change is occurring and really thinking progressively. And I anticipate not only leadership from our coaching staff, our administration, but from the individuals on the teams. I see them being leaders, taking the things that they see in this world and wanting to bridge those gaps and make new friendships and be out there in support for each other. I think it's just going to be amazing this year.
Question coming in for Coach Craig on our Facebook live chat. It comes in from John, who is in Belmar. And Coach John has a question for you as far as your coaching mentors. Who were the individuals that you looked up to when you were young head coach and when you were making your way and you had so much success before coming to Monmouth as now you're getting the program turned around? Who were those individuals that you looked up to?
Well, crazy as it sounds, my parents. And I grew up in a coaching family. Both of my parents were coaches. And my mom was a volleyball coach. And I think more than anything, she taught me toughness and preparation. My dad was a men's college basketball coach, but he took time away from his job and came and coached me when I was in high school. So I think I learned so much about understanding of the game from him, even as a player. We had film session every day that we watched a TV. We were watching an NBA game and it was film session. And I loved it. I soaked it in. I was all for it. So, and then my stepdad, so I just had coaches around me in the family. And I probably learned more about player development and spacing in terms of on the floor from my stepdad as I became a coach. So those things, but then, I was enamored with any coach who was a great winner. I always wanted to know what were they doing that allowed that to happen. So I paid attention and was a big fan of Pat Summitt at the time that she was a pioneer for women's basketball. I loved the way her teams play defense. But then I saw Gino Auriemma take over that winning tradition by being very good defensively and a great offensive mind. He was very creative offensively. So Gino at UConn, Tara Vanderveer taught me the value of watching film and learning and paying attention. Be your own coach. Learn the game by breaking down your opponent and taking something away from them. So she was somebody. I was a big fan of the Chicago Bulls. So Phil Jackson was somebody that I still think was a phenomenal coach. Maybe not a great GM, but a phenomenal coach. And spacing and balanced scoring was something that helped me develop my philosophy there. So, and I was even an NFL fan. I watched anybody that was a winner. So at the time, Seattle was doing really well. I loved how Pete Carroll's teams competed. I thought that there was something that was amazing about that, is that consistently year after year, they just competed their little butts off. And he was so involved and engaged with his players. I thought that was amazing. And then as many as people, I'm going to get people upset with me, but I like Bill Belichick. And I liked him for his preparation and for his attention to detail and just his no drama approach to the game, where players understood their roles and everybody bought in, and together they were better than collectively they were individually.
Well, that's quite the cradle of winning coaches that you mentioned, Coach. And I know, yeah, I mean, it's easy to look at the ones with the most success. I'm with you. And even though this area isn't fond of him, you're right about Coach Belichick. How do you ignore winning?
No, and I'm sure there'll be some that say there was other ways that he reached those pinnacles, but I prefer not to think of it like that.
Exactly. And, Coach, we really do appreciate you being able to take the time here this evening and kind of give us that inside look into the very bright future for this Monmouth women's basketball program. We wish you and your family continued health, and really thank you so much for joining me this evening.
Thank you for having me, Eddie. It's been a pleasure.
It's Monmouth head women's basketball coach Jody Craig as we wrap up episode number 17 here on Hawk Talk. If you missed any of our conversation here tonight, you can check it out on MonmouthHawks.com, the video tab right here on Facebook on the Monmouth Athletics page, as well as YouTube.com/MonmouthHawks. We're back at it next week. For Coach Craig, I'm Eddie Acapenti saying good night from Hawk Talk.